This is Into the Mix, a Ben & Jerry's podcast about joy and justice, produced with Vox Creative. I'm Ashley C. Ford.
Joy today is mine. I told Satan, get thee behind. Victory today is mine. I know.
In 2018, when Miss Sharon first heard about Formosa Plastics' plans to build in St. James Parish, she led a march with some other members of the St. James Health Association. They wanted to march in the street, but Miss Sharon says the sheriff told them no.
So I told him, okay, I said, I guess we'll march on the sidewalk. Now they can't tell me that now, because I know better.
A few months later, Miss Sharon led a second march with the members of the newly formed Rise St. James. This time, they were going to march right in the middle of the road.
So the next march we had was in May of 2019. Went to the sheriff department to tell him we want to march. He said, you can march on the side of the shoulder. I said, no, we marching on the highway, on Highway 18 out there. He couldn't tell me nothing after that because I knew better. If you don't know nothing, they can tell you anything. But so after that, we got all the paperwork done. I went there, leave from school that day at 2:30, go across the river to go get the paperwork done and everything to make sure the march was ready. I didn't want nothing to stop us.
Rise, St. James!
Miss Sharon and Rise St. James marched down the road toward the Sunshine Bridge, right by the land of the proposed Formosa Plastics plant with the name the Sunshine Project. Two of Miss Sharon's daughters, Shamira and Shamel, were there.
And then we got that done. We marched, and then we had the bulls on. We were talking on the bulls on. We were telling them, but we're going to stop Formosa. And Shamel said, Governor John Bell Edward, this is time out. You're not bringing this plant here. And boy, Shamel was crying. Oh, it was powerful. Oh, and Geraldine was in the walker, sitting down there with the bull's horn on and talking. Everybody was upset and angry. And then Pat Bryan started singing Old Freedom. I had never heard that song before. Never heard it before. It touched my heart for that event. It just touched me.
The atmosphere was joyful and celebratory. The community was fighting for their lives against the building of yet another pollution-causing petrochemical plant, but they were doing it together. There was music and food because, remember, this is Louisiana.
And then after that, I told everybody, I said, we have jambalaya and food for y'all. A friend of mine cooked it for free. They did all that. People around here do things for you. They cook it for free. Her husband cooked the jambalaya, and we had already bought the cold drinks and stuff. Then the people sat down and ate.
While everyone was eating jambalaya and visiting with each other, Miss Sharon's neighbor came up beside her.
One man came on my right side. He said, boy, you got the spirit in you. I said, oh, you could see it. He said, yeah, girl, you're powerful. I said, okay. Then another girl named Sheila, she came to my left side. She said, girl, I could see God in you. And I said, really? Wow. And I didn't know people could see it. I said, is that noticeable? Girl, I didn't know. And then we sat down. I couldn't eat because I was so excited. I couldn't eat.
Yeah.
But I was singing, victory is mine. The victory is mine. But I was clowning, and I was telling Formosa, this is the stop. You will not be built in St. James Parish.
Wow.
And everything was just coming out of me, how I felt.
It sounds like you were feeling the, what my grandma used to call the spirit of victory.
Yes.
So every once in a while she would go, oh, I got the spirit of victory. And yes, and it sounds to me like you were in the throes of the spirit
and I couldn't
of
even
victory.
eat that day.
In the last two episodes of this mini-series, we've seen the stark reality of Cancer Alley.
I need to get a Goodyear blimp and put it in the sky so people can understand we are dying. The people over here are dying.
We've heard the deeply embedded history of the land.
It has a history that is beautiful, but at the same time painful.
And in this final chapter of our 3-part series, along with Miss Sharon and Tish and Joe, we will dare to reimagine a future for this place they call home. This is episode 3, Victory is Mine. Let's get into it. Land is power anywhere in the world, but especially in the river parishes of Louisiana. Sometimes that power is reclaimed simply by marching in the middle of the street instead of on the sidewalk. Sometimes it's owning land to protect it from industrial use, like Miss Sharon owning the riverfront across from her home. The Descendants Project, the organization Jo Banner leads with her twin sister Joy, seeks to build power through the stewardship of the land and its history.
So the revolution begins 1811, I think January 8th. That time frame was selected because this was right after the grinding season, essentially carnival season began, and that's the rest period for the plantations.
The 1811 German Coast Uprising was the largest uprising of enslaved people in the United States. Its story is rarely told, and its history starts right here at the Woodland Plantation. In present day, descendant communities in Cancer Alley suffer from the drastic health effects of living near industry. Industry built on top of the same plantations where their ancestors faced unimaginable violence.
So the revolution starts off at this plantation. Charles DeLon and his crew, they break through the home and they kill Andrew's son. Because he was, that's what they had to do. And so word starts getting out about this insurrection, if you want to call it that, this freedom fight.
Over the course of 3 days, hundreds of enslaved people marched from sugarcane plantations along the Mississippi River toward New Orleans with the intention of declaring a free Black republic. Led by Charles DeLon, armed mostly with farming hand tools, they killed the son of the Woodland Plantation's owner in the very house where we sat with Joe. In total, 2 white people were killed by the march. The same cannot be said for those who participated.
60 of them were tried for the insurrection. They were killed or executed. They were executed at the plantations that they escaped from.
Because this story is so untold and researched, accounts vary on how many of the revolutionaries were tried and killed. But what doesn't vary is that they were killed in a wildly brutal fashion. The violent ending of the revolt was meant as a warning against future actions towards freedom.
It's a very traumatic story that I've never read in a book.
One of the aims of the Woodland Plantation is to share the little-known story of the largest revolt of enslaved people in the country. But Jo says she also wants to allow the space for visitors, especially Black visitors, to engage in the depth of its tragic ending in their own way on their own time, but to still engage with it. Because knowing and sharing this history in all of its violence is deeply important. Why don't we know any of the details? Because this story, when I think about Nat King Turner, when I think about other stories of uprisings, when I think about other stories of extreme violence, it seems like more and more of them are only coming to light in a mainstream way in the past 10 years. Like, people just now know about Tulsa. People just now know about what's underneath Lake Lanier. You know what I mean? Like, people are just now finding those things out. How does that happen? Why are these histories and stories so suppressed that by the time we hear about them, it's 100 years, 200 years, 300 years gone?
Suppression, that's such a great, great question, because at the end of the day, the suppression of voice is the greatest tool, the greatest weapon against us.
Right.
You wipe away the history, you wipe away the connection, you wipe away the value and you reconstruct what it is that you want and disconnect from that. So that happens, that suppression is intentional by design because your voice and that connection is so strong and it gives you agency and it helps you know your value. So you wipe away value, wipe away memory. This history has not been told enough. It's the largest believed revolt of the enslaved that happened in the country. A lot of people know about Nat Turner, but not many people know about this one. So, part of our owning of this land is telling that history and also making sure that these people are not criminalized because they were traumatized, they were harmed, all they wanted was their freedom, and they were fighting for their freedom. And they're not criminals, they're not murderers, they were doing what they needed to do to survive.
Right. Wow, that is a lot.
And their owners were also paid reparations.
I knew that, not necessarily about this situation. I knew that about in general when a slave had to be executed, or even when our ancestors were originally freed by law, that the former slave owners were given reparations for the loss. A lot of people don't like that fact and try to forget it, but I don't. Sources haven't confirmed that enslavers were paid reparations in the case of the 1811 uprising, but once again, this could be due to the repression of this history and the lack of research into it. However, there are several other corroborated instances of enslavers receiving payments for the death or freeing of those they enslaved. But I don't want to talk about those kinds of reparations right now. I don't want to talk about paying enslavers for their lost property. No. I want to talk about true reparations, about true actions of repair. I want to talk about owning harm done and returning what never was supposed to be owned. I also wholeheartedly acknowledge that we can't talk about land and economic reparations without talking about the genocide and displacement of indigenous people in the Americas. The land that was seized for plantations along the Mississippi was taken from the Choctaw, Huma, Chitimacha, and Biloxi peoples who still live in southern Louisiana and steward this land. And the ownership of it by such huge illusions of power as plantations and now industrial fortresses has waged violence on the land and people for generations. One of the things I think about a lot in terms of the pain, the violence, the violation that happened on land like this all over Louisiana, all over the country, it's really hard sometimes because it sounds so egregious to get people to understand what was lost and how that affected the descendants of the people who were brutalized and taken advantage of in these places. In what ways do you feel that localized land-based reparations can be healing for the descendant communities in the River Parishes?
Well, healing through land. Well, first of all, land is protection. So having land, and another component of the Descendants Project is defensively buying land and property. So we've bought several properties around us to protect the land. And just by us having that land purchased and in our hands, it's made the pressure level or the anxiety level of our village just, wow. Joe and Joy are bordering the Descendants Project. We're bordered, and we're right around the Formosa property, around the grain terminal. So we know, if community knows, if Joe and Joy have that, the Descendants Project have that land, they're not selling out. We have it protected, and we're making sure that no one can encroach, or we'll make it a lot harder. So just protecting that land and having it is part of the healing process. First of all, at least stopping it where it's at is very important.
The Descendants Project fundraises for land purchases in Cancer Alley to protect it from industry use, similar to buying the woodland plantation and ensuring it doesn't become another toxic plantation museum. It's like how Miss Sharon owned her Batcher or riverfront, which she pointed out to us on the toxic tour. If she has it, industry can't. In Cancer Alley, who owns the land can be the difference between life and death. To go a step further, the Descendants Project has also worked in a coalition with other groups in Cancer Alley to build a framework for land reparations that would do what the Freedmen Bureau promised to do right after abolition: to return former plantation land to those enslaved upon it, or in this case, their descendants. The Descendants Project is working with a reparations model where former plantation land could be seized by the state using eminent domain and returned to descendant communities in the form of community land trusts. This would not only act as reparations, but reimagine how the land would be owned. It would protect the land from being bought and sold and used for billions of dollars, and could be used in ways that contribute to community thriving. A model of localized reparations like this would allow for true community and cultural healing, and it would give the land a chance to heal.
We're also connecting people back to land because I've noticed that there's just a disconnect between us and land. It's seen as a bad thing.
Yes.
Right? It's seen as like, oh, well, no, I'm not no slave. I'm not working in a field or whatever. But land is so beautiful and it means so much to us, at least to me, and I want people to have that experience. So just reconnecting with the soil and healing through the soil. One of my indigenous friends told me, and it's something that hit me really hard when she said this. She was talking about cotton. And she said that, cotton is a beautiful plant. And the cotton has gone through so much. It needs to heal too, because look what happened to it. Cotton was manipulated and modified and all the things it had stripped away for that. And it's the same thing with sugarcane. Sugarcane was brought here like we were, so that plant needs to heal. We need to heal together. And I think of us like the land healing with us. We all have rights. We are right holders, but so is the land, so is the water. And how do we collectively acknowledge our rights and heal together? So I think that reparation for us also is reparation for the land itself. The plant itself, we can fight for them and fight for nature too, which is who I think just connects so much to who we are, our African blood, right? Just that connection to the land and to the plants and to all of that in nature. And it brings me more peace. I love it. I love the stewardship now, feeling I have something beautiful to steward, knowing I have something beautiful to steward and fight for.
There's so much to fight for in Cancer Alley. The people and the land deserve to be fought for, and they are already fighting. They are using their voices every single day to fight for this place they call home.
As we fight against these projects, these industrialized projects that are coming in, the first thing that they do is they communicate. They get in there and they start talking to community members and churches, whatever. They control the conversation. And they will do whatever they can to suppress our voice. It's just trying to suppress our voice is their biggest weapon. And I think it's so important that we make sure we are connected to our history. We do our best to connect others to their history. To acknowledge our culture and history, to tell it unapologetically, as gritty and coarse or as beautiful and joyful as we want it, to just have liberation and who we are, just being liberated, really being liberated. As we are looking at the history, realizing what our present and future look like as descendants, understanding that the system of enslavement is still very much in place, how it impacts us today, our health, our happiness, our environment, and addressing those concerns.
We're back in St. James Parish with Miss Sharon.
What is your biggest fight right now?
Politicians. Politicians don't, they're not trying to help us. They could stop this big time. They could stop it, but they won't stop it. They vote yes because you know what they're getting.
Miss Sharon rubs her fingers together. Money.
I'm trying to work on that too, because I feel it's their fault that we are sick, and they have to pay for making us sick. And I know I'm sick, and I'm gonna make them pay.
Miss Sharon's rise to leadership was not one of want, but one of need. This whole fight against Formosa and pollution and politicians and money is one of need. Rise St. James is grassroots to a T. No one is doing anything, so we have to do it ourselves.
We don't need the politicians if they're not gonna help us. I say get rid of the politicians. We don't really need them. They're not helping us.
Right.
They in the pockets of industry. Industry is with them.
Miss Sharon had to learn how to fight industry herself. But now, Rise St. James serves as an educational space for community members to learn how to fight hard and smart. They host a call once a month called Rise University, where they educate both on the facts needed to bolster arguments like how much ethylene oxide Formosa would emit if built, and vital activism skills like how to leave a public comment on a proposed new plant.
Because people don't know if you don't talk to them and tell them. So we put the words out there, and we have meetings, and we tell the people what's going on. So that was a good thing. I said, Lord.
It sounds like it. If you could get one of these politicians' ear, if you could get them to really listen, really take you seriously, consider the people here, consider the circumstances, what would you want from them? What do you need from them to help you reach this goal?
To change the laws. Let them change it where we would have say-so over what comes in our district. Why should we have 7 districts voting to put something in another district? Let that community vote if they want to see a certain industry or whatever in that district. Why should 7 people have to say, oh yeah, let's throw it in the 5th district? And even the 5th district vote, let's put it in the 5th district. So no, let the people have a say-so.
Something that's come up again and again when speaking with Miss Sharon is this feeling that nobody in power is listening. This feeling that she and Rise have to do everything themselves. Many of the communities in the 4th and 5th districts of St. James Parish are unincorporated towns. This means that they don't have a mayor or city council or really any community-level municipality. Decisions are made for them at the parish level, and they have one parish councilman to represent the 5th district, and supposedly the interests of the people of the 5th district.
Nobody did anything about anything.
Right.
They said we elect the parish councils in each one of our districts. We have 7 districts. They're supposed to protect us. We voted them in office. They're supposed to work in our best interest.
Yes.
Come to find out they weren't.
In 2018, when Formosa submitted plans for its $9.4 billion plastics plant, the parish council, including the representative for the 5th district of St. James, voted to approve it, even after the graves of those enslaved on the land were discovered.
Then we found out that our ancestors' graves are on that land. My ancestors' graves are on that land. And they said if you can find one person that can prove that their ancestors are buried down there, they can't build. Parish council still told them they could build. The parish council, yes indeed. All 7 of them.
Really?
And the one that's over here, we voted him out in October. Because he voted for it to come over here, and he lived right there. I can walk to his house.
Oh my God.
And he voted for it to come here. So we voted him out of office. He'll never get back in office.
I bet not.
So now they're angry with us. They're angry with me and with Rise. I don't care because they're angry.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care who don't like me, who don't really know. God never knows. Oh boy, they're wasting their time to think I'm worrying about it. I got other work to do. We got other fish to fry. We got other bigger issues that's going on in St. James Parish that we're going to overturn.
One of those very big fish to fry is the issue of Formosa's air permits. For every newly proposed plant, the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality, LDEQ, grants air permits that allow for the plant to emit certain levels of pollutants. Oftentimes, the limits allowed by these permits still surpass healthy amounts for human exposure, especially since for some carcinogens like chloroprene emitted by the DuPont Danka plant near Tish's home, that safe amount is next to nothing. Even further, if plants are in fact found to be emitting past their amount allowed in their air permits, the fees they have to pay are often insignificant to huge multinational corporations. But regardless of big issues with these air permits, they are still needed in order for plants to operate. Miss Sharon knows this. So in 2022, with no one listening at the parish council level, Rise St. James took Formosa to court and won.
Judge Trudy White, a black judge, said that Formosa need to pack up and vacate the premises.
Judge Trudy White of the 19th Judicial District Court in Baton Rouge effectively canceled all of the 14 air permits awarded to Formosa by the LDEQ. White's decision was based on the findings that the LDEQ failed to comply with the Federal Clean Air Act. She stated that the LDEQ failed to take into account the current level of air pollution in the surrounding communities that already exceeds the level of safe cancer risk exposure determined by the EPA. RISE did exactly what they set out to do: stop Formosa from coming to St. James Parish. This was a huge triumph for Miss Sharon, Rise St. James, and the future of Cancer Alley. But the win didn't last. In January of this year, right as the new governor, Jeffrey Landry, took office, the Louisiana First Circuit Court of Appeals reversed Judge White's decision, ruling in favor of the staying of Formosa's air permits. The courts decided that the LDEQ had shown that they had successfully balanced the pros and cons of the plant being built in the 5th District. The pros they cited: the promised influx of 1,200 jobs, community health screenings, and the beautification of a nearby park. The cons? A tripling of harmful air pollution in the 5th District of St. James. This ruling is a blow to Rise's fight against Formosa, but it's not the end. Alongside other environmental groups, Rise filed an appeal in March.
You spoke with Rise St. James yourself. You spoke with Sharon. You know that this fight is not over for them. This was kind of just one little hurdle in the way of the grand scheme of things.
This is Gianna St. Julian from the Tulane Environmental Law Clinic again. She's part of the research arm of the legal team representing Rise in this case.
I think any type of activism, you're going to be faced with some hurdles along the way. And I think if anything, this kind of just makes them a little bit more empowered and more motivated to get their story out there and continue to push and fight.
Which, you know, is exactly what Miss Sharon is doing.
They're still fighting it, so we're not going to just roll over.
Miss Sharon and Rise have won before, and they know they can do it again. In 2019, their activism pressured Wanhua Chemical, a Chinese petrochemical company, to rescind their proposal for a plastics manufacturing plant right across the river from Miss Sharon. And in 2022, with pressure from Rise St. James, South Louisiana Methanol rescinded their air permit application for what would have been the largest methanol production facility in North America, right in Freetown, where we stood on the side of the road with Miss Sharon last episode.
But Wanhua Chemical, that's the first one. That was in 2019. They were trying to come in. And we went to the parish council meeting and we spoke against them coming in. And the next thing you know, in September, they left. They threw in the hat and left. They said, "Oh, Rise did this." I said, "Oh, we did?" Because nobody else was fighting it. Nobody else. But they left first. And then when it came down to South Louisiana methanol, that was the second one. And for most, it's gonna be the third, and DG Fuels is gonna be the fourth.
There you go.
Because DG Fuels haven't even gotten an air permit yet.
Sometimes hearing about Miss Sharon's fight in Cancer Alley feels like this huge game of whack-a-mole. A game of whack-a-mole with enormous consequences and moles with billions of dollars and government support. But Miss Sharon will continue to fight because there is simply too much to fight for. Like the kids who are born and grow up in Cancer Alley. Here's Tish from Concerned Citizens of St. John the Baptist.
I have a beautiful, perfect grandson. I will show pictures.
Yes.
Cairo is 2 years old, and he has exceeded his exposure, his lifetime of 70-year exposure to chloroprene at 2 years old. He was born premature, and he is not speaking. A lot of miscarriage, a lot of preterm births. That's very common, that people are having premature babies and staying in the hospital longer. And then they have breathing issues, respiratory issues their whole life. Normally, when one person ends up, like with my experience with my daughter Tisha and my grandson, all of a sudden you hear other people, oh, well, such and such, their baby was premature. Now, he's having trouble with asthma. That's very common in our community. Very common. It's not like that everywhere. And when we have these small communities who never leave home, rarely leave home, they don't understand that this is not normal. This is their normal. It's our normal. It's sad.
The drastic effects of pollution on the reproductive health of parents and babies seems to get lost when talking about Cancer Alley. It's something that Sharon said people don't talk about enough. Reproductive health disparities are already life-threatening to Black parents and babies in every part of the country, and living in Cancer Alley makes it so much worse.
We had heard a lot about a lot of negative birth outcomes, miscarriages, preterm birth, low birth weight, and other sort of, just negative health outcomes when looking at maternal health. So we just went ahead and, wanted to assess if there was any sort of data that we could get our hands on to see if, it supported kind of the claims that we were hearing from our clients. And we went ahead and looked at rates of low birth weight and preterm birth, and we got that from the Louisiana Office of Vital Records. We were basically able to conclude that the most polluted places had a 36% higher risk of low birth weight and a 25% higher risk of preterm birth compared to those least polluted places.
Louisiana teems with contradiction. It's incredibly vulnerable to climate change, and it's a huge emitter of greenhouse gases. It consistently has some of the lowest education, health, and wealth rankings in the country, yet it provides billion-dollar tax breaks to big industry. Its state motto is union, justice, and confidence, and yet it's been called the prison capital of the world. And finally, it passes laws that claim to save the lives of some while disregarding so many others. In a state with some of the strictest anti-abortion laws, pro-life is even more contradictory when
You're born and coming home to Cancer Alley. Then you're on your own because you're already designated to die for petrochemical industries. We are dying, and it's alarming. And I want my family to live. I want them to be healthy. I want my grandbaby to get everything that he deserves to have a healthy, happy life. Instead, he's got respiratory illness. He's not talking. He's got eczema on his skin already. And he's 2. The perfect future for Cairo would be to grow healthy, breathe clean air, to work in the garden with his grandmother, to understand how the earth works and to love it and care for it, to be a good steward of it, to laugh and smile and to grow into a strong, independent young man and have children of his own and feel safe at his home in St. John Parish.
He deserves that.
He deserves that. Yes, he does. I deserve that. My daddy deserves that because he's looking at 5 generations now. You know, he was recently asked, would he leave? And he's like, how can I leave when I have 5 generations? I can't take them all with me. I have to fight for their future. And that's the way we feel. You know, it's so overwhelming, but it's so necessary. It's so necessary to do this because we're not going anywhere. We live here. We deserve to be treated like human beings.
Telling the story, or even a tiniest part of the story of Cancer Alley, means trying to convey just how high the stakes are. It means not softening the blow of just how many people are sick, just how many people are dying, and just how many people are seeing their homes destroyed. But it also means making sure that people know one thing: hope is vital. We need to listen to Miss Sharon and Tish and Joe and tell them, I see you, I hear you, and I'm with you. I will fight with you. Because a future beyond cancer and sickness and death, a future that is visible and possible and healthy and free, that future can still exist. But only if we fight for it.
But first of all, give us clean air, clean water. These plants that's polluting us, if they don't follow the regulation, shut them down. Let them get out of here and bring their trash with them. So I would like to see St. James clean so I can go outside and breathe clean air again and drink clean water. And our children can go outside and play without coming back in the house with rashes on them. And I can sit on my porch, read my Bible, and don't smell the chemicals anymore. And see the red birds flying from one tree to the next. That's what I would like. And plant a garden again. We having a garden. I'll start planting a garden on the 21st of this month. It's going to be a community garden right in the backyard back there. And we're going to have the troughs raised up from the ground, and we're going to buy the soil to put in it. So our thing going to be organic. Beautiful. So I'm looking forward to that. Get some nice fresh corn in the cob. Oh boy, I miss all that. My dad used to plant that, and I miss that.
What a beautiful vision.
Oh, yes.
I think it's less of a
wish.
wish.
When it happened, but I sure want it to happen. I might be 100. I don't care. Walking with a cane. I don't care.
I think you'll be there one way or another, and I think it's less of a wish and more of a plan, you know. And I think when you have a plan, the potential for getting there is so much higher. And having somebody as ferocious as you behind that plan.
Oh, maybe so.
More racism. No.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to everyone here today that's coming here to celebrate, okay? My name is Sharon Levine. I'm the director and founder of Rise St. James, right here in St. James Parish. And we are here to commemorate the graves of our enslaved ancestors.
Amen. Hope is a two-sided coin. On one side, hope tells you to disconnect, to blindly put faith in a future. Sit back and watch. It tells you it'll all work out. Don't you worry. This is the easy side of hope. The side of hope that the people of Cancer Alley don't get to feel. How often do you?
Yes. We will not allow them to take our ancestors out of this ground and put them somewhere else.
Hallelujah.
We are Rise St. James, and we're going to stand up for St. James Parish. This is our home. We're not going anywhere. Formosa have a fight on their hands.
Hallelujah.
The other side of hope is what Joe and Miss Sharon and Tish and their community feel. It's a driving force to fight for their lives and their home. It is a necessary hope. It's action. It's a fight. It's what will help build the future of the River Parishes that we need to create. This fight is not just their burden to bear. It's one we can all help to shoulder and make lighter together. Into the Mix is a Ben & Jerry's podcast produced with Vox Creative. This episode was written by Jules Bradley. The Vox Creative team includes lead producers Priscilla Alabi and Jules Bradley, production supervisor Taylor Henry, and production manager Jessica Bay. Martha D. Sally is our supervising producer. Anu Subramanian is our executive producer. The team also includes Amy Wenzel, Senior Manager of Creative Services, Michelle Blam, Associate Director of Project Management, Director of Post-Production Greg Russ, and Post-Production Manager Andrew Hammond. Kyle Neal engineered this episode. Felicia Dominguez is our junior engineer. Original music by Israel Tutson. A special thank you to Mary Anais Hegler, our sensitivity reader, and Zoe Malik, our fact checker, for their expertise, and to Ariane Young for her support. The Ben & Jerry's team includes Jay Tandon, Jay Curley, Sanjana Mahesh, Chris Miller, and Palika Makam. We also like to thank Jordan Brewington for their time and knowledge, and the Years Project for providing a clip from their short documentary, Fighting Polluting Industry in Cancer Alley, for use in this series. Featured in this series was additional music including Somber Healing, produced by Christian Romo, courtesy of YR Media. Oh Freedom, arranged and performed by Rise St. James, and Society Blues, written and performed by Kid Ory's Sunshine Orchestra. I'm Ashley C. Ford. Thank you for listening.
Vox Creative.